Hello, everybody. Welcome to round one of the 2017 Arizona Regional Championships. We are just moments away to get started with this match of Tommy Cooleen versus William Hall. But for now, I'm here with my co-star Jason.
Hey, everybody.
My name's Gabby, and we're just going to take a moment to talk about, who's here.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, everybody's pretty hyped, and you have the roster right there.
Yeah. So I think
who's here?
A good place to start is we have 129 masters, which means that based on the different thresholds that the Pokemon Company released for pricing and for CP, we're just barely hitting that 128 range. Which is good. I'm sure players probably would have been disappointed if they didn't quite get there. So that means I think that means that the prize now is first place is going to get $1,000. So that's new and that's very exciting. I think only top 32 is going to get CP for this this event. So as for people who's here, let's see. We can just kind of go down the list. So the first person, obviously, you probably know. We're going to have Aaron Cybertron Zhang is back at his first event since he took a break to commentate. Since I think San Jose was the last time he competed. I heard, or not San Jose, Anaheim.
Yeah.
Which he won, and so it'll be exciting to see how he does now that he's getting back into the actual playing. Let's see. We've got Alberto Lara. We have Bjorn Johnson is here. We've got, let's see, going down the list. We have the national champion, of course, Chase Liebert is here with also his older brother Colton, for those who know about him.
And he's a local player, right?
He is. We're very proud of him in Arizona. For those that don't know, I'm an Arizona local as well. So we're very proud of Chase here, and we're excited to see what he does. Let's
take a moment to talk about the metagame, though, because I think that's what people are really, looking forward to seeing.
Right.
We are in a post-Worlds metagame. This is the first regional championship since Worlds ended, 2 months ago now?
Yeah, I would say it was end of August, so yeah, probably like a month and a half.
All right, I can't do time right now. So, I mean, what are you expecting to see? Are we going to see a lot of, for lack of a better term, Wolf Glick clones?
We might. He obviously demonstrated that his team was very good, very dominant, I would say, at Worlds. And so you'll probably see a lot of people trying to capitalize on that. But it's going to be, I imagine, a very volatile metagame right now because a lot of people just aren't sure what others are going to bring. You're going to have people trying to counter Wolf's team. You're going to have your big six people. You're going to have people trying to open it. I think open the metagame up. Because I think part of what was so great about Wolf's team is they demonstrated that the metagame isn't as constrained as a lot of people thought it was. I think a lot of people, at least in the U.S., thought that you had a couple options. You had big six variants with Groudon and Xerneas, and then you had dual primals, and then maybe there was some Kyogre, but Nationals and Worlds was really when that started to kind of arrive. But I think now people are getting even more adventurous. You may see things like you might even see some XY, some Yveltal Xerneas. You'll definitely see, I think there'll be a lot of Yveltal. I at least know Arizona, for whatever kind of metagame that we already have, Arizona really likes Yveltal. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Arizona players brought that. Other players too, whether it's paired with Kyogre, Groudon, maybe even a Xerneas. I think we might also see Dialga, probably paired with Groudon. That's a chance. There were some people that ran that archetype at Worlds. And you might even see some weirder things like Zekrom. I heard some rumblings about some Zekrom. So
oh, really? That should be interesting.
That should be interesting because that's a Pokemon we haven't seen at all.
I think I've seen more Kurum than Zekrom.
Yeah. I know Patrick Smith, and I think it was James Eakes had a nice little Kurum White Gravity team that did pretty well for a while at Anaheim around that same time. I think that's who Aaron beat to win that tournament. So might see Kurum, but we haven't seen a chance to see Zekrom or maybe even Kurum Black, who knows. So it should be very interesting, and I think the really important thing is that this regional, and probably Florida to an extent too, will likely set the pace for what the rest of the metagame is going to be.
Definitely.
It's gonna probably develop from here based on what people bring. So that's why it's very important that you viewers out here are watching, because it's going to give you the inside look at what the best players, at least on this side of the country, are going to be bringing. So
Definitely. And you bring up a really good point that not only I think will we set the pace here, but this might be a lot of people's last 2016 regional.
Yeah.
So it's also possible we're going to see some people attempt some strategies that maybe or could have been considered unorthodox.
Right.
Like sometimes people just have that favorite Pokemon and, now's the time to try it.
Yeah, you got nothing left to use. People are kind of just biding their time until Sun and Moon comes out in November. And they might just want to have fun. I know that's a lot of thing. Not that, I'm sure a lot of us all have fun at these events. But I think people might be even more inclined to just go with what's going to be fun for them to play with.
Definitely. Well,
So.
we're still waiting for the okay to start, but
Yes.
let's, start looking forward to round one.
Yeah.
Tommy, William, both very accomplished players.
Right.
I was really happy to see this matchup pop up.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are really excited to see it.
I think Will and Tommy probably weren't too happy to see
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I don't think they want to play each other this early, but
Probably not.
That's okay. It's going to be entertaining for you guys and for us. And that's what matters, right?
Yeah, so Tommy's had a pretty great season.
Mhm.
He did pretty well Day 1 Worlds this year. I can't say I've been keeping an eye on William. Do you know how his season's been going?
Yeah, so William, let's see. I know William was a beast in 2015. Oh, we might be getting the announcement. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but
All right. They just asked if we're ready.
Okay.
I think we're ready.
I think we're ready. So we're going
They're
to kick it
making
over.
announcements. So
Oh.
let's just keep talking about,
Okay.
William's season.
All right, sounds good. So William was a beast in these earlier years. He's been a player for a very long time. I know that in 2016 he didn't have any. He didn't top cut any regionals. I'm not sure if he landed in the top 16, top 32 ranges, things like that. But he did qualify for Worlds. I think he did not make it. He definitely didn't. I don't think he made it to day 2. But is a Worlds qualified player. Been there multiple times. I know personally. When I played PCs here, he gives me trouble. He's a very talented player, so this should be a very good matchup to start things off.
All right, so we actually do have some team information already. They just got the go-ahead.
Okay.
Let's get this game started.
All right, so we're going to get started.
Round 1 of the Arizona 2017 Regional Championships. Tommy Cooleen versus William Hall. Tommy is running since, we're waiting for them to get
Yes.
started. I do have it written down. Xerneas, Kyogre, Weavile, Amoonguss, Bronzong, and Salamence against William, William's Crobat, Salamence, Kangaskhan, Yveltal, Gengar, and Groudon. So, as you said, we might see Yveltal.
Yep.
There it is.
There it is, and on an Arizona player, no less. So that's pretty funny. So immediately though, based on their two teams, just look at their primals. Tommy has Kyogre, Will has Groudon, gonna be able to OHKO with a Kyogre. Tommy also has Xerneas on his team, which is gonna have a good matchup against Yveltal. So I think on paper, Tommy looks like he has some better options, at least to get those big knockouts on Will's restricted Pokemon. However, Will is prepared. He has things like Crobat and Gengar for the Xerneas, more the Xerneas than the Kyogre, but the Kyogre's not going to appreciate a Super Fang either, and that could definitely help either the Yveltal take it out with a Foul Play, or maybe a Special or a Dark Pulse. And it's definitely also going to help against the Xerneas as well if it has something like Haze or Taunt. So, and then really, what's really interesting, actually, now that I'm looking at Will's team, he might have triple Mega.
It's really hard to say.
Yeah.
I
I definitely think that the Salamence and the Kangaskhan are Mega.
Yeah.
But who knows? He might be running regular Gengar, but that's rare. I mean, double Mega, I think you see a lot this year, but I don't think I've seen very much triple Mega.
I don't think I've seen it either, and it is worth noting that these players are going to be playing a best-of-3 match.
Yes,
so
it is best of 3 today.
We could see 1 Mega per every game if
That's
that's
true.
If that's what William
That's
brought.
very true.
All right, so let's get this game started. Tommy Cooleen leading with a Weavile Salamence combo. I love that shiny Weavile. William going in with a Kangaskhan Gengar combo. So one of those guys is probably going to Mega Evolve this turn.
I would say so. And this is an interesting position for Will, because while the Intimidate's certainly not going to help the Kangaskhan, won't be a big deal for the Gengar. But what is problematic is Gengar is definitely in range of a knockoff. It's not going to appreciate a knockoff. And I think actually that's a decision that Tommy's going to have to make. Does he want to get a Fake Out off onto the Kangaskhan, which Will could also potentially avoid by not Mega Evolving and preserving his inner focus? So does he want to go for a Fang Up on Kang, or Fake Out on Kang, or a knockoff on Gengar, get a quick KO, and considering that, what does Will do? Does he switch out? Is he going to do something else? Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out. No switches this turn. We saw Salaman's Mega Evolve. Now it's Kangaskhan's turn. So it's going to use its Parental Bond ability to deal some big damage potentially this turn. Or, it could go for that Protect.
Okay.
Going to prevent it from getting hit by any fake outs from Weavile, which looks like is exactly what Tommy went for. Gengar using Icy Wind, so it's going to deal a lot of damage to that Salamence because it is 4 times weak to ice moves. Also, it's going to lower the speed of both Salamence and Weavile, so that might be huge depending on how much speed William's running on his Kangaskhan. Salamence finishing up this turn with a Hyper Voice. Again, not going to deal a lot of damage, but could have mattered depending on what Gengar's holding. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and again, you're right. We haven't seen items so far on Gengar. It could have a Focus Sash. It could have a Life Orb. Well, no, it didn't have the Life Orb. It just attacked. So, but I think that Icy Wind was actually huge for Will because if I'm not mistaken, Weavile now will underspeed the Kangaskhan, and he's going to be able to get off a return or a double edge, definitely take out that very frail Weavile. Meanwhile, Gengar might even be able to KO with a Sludge Bomb.
It might. Look, Weavile not wanting to risk taking any damage from Kangaskhan this turn. Tommy switching in his Xerneas in its place, interestingly enough. Also switching out the Salamence. So a lot of trainers really hesitate to go for this double switch. It means that he's not going to deal any damage this turn, which could be a huge loss of momentum on his side of the field. But we'll just have to see. Kyogre taking the time to Primal Revert, set up that Rain, which it knows and loves very much. It gets a boost for all of its water type attacks. It could make Thunder 100% accurate if he's carrying that. We shall see. Shadow Ball from Gengar into Kyogre doesn't deal a lot of damage. Kangaskhan following up with a double edge into the Xerneas slot. Again, doesn't deal a lot of damage, but given the fact that Tommy didn't really attack this turn, every little HP counts.
Yeah, and honestly, now I think Will is in a really hard position. What you notice is that his Kangaskhan, it didn't do enough damage. It might be a roll, but it doesn't look like he can safely get a 2-hit KO on the Xerneas, so he can't safely double edge. Then he also has to consider, what is Kyogre going to do? Is he going to go for a Water Spout? Is he going to go for an Origin Pulse? Either way, that's huge damage on both of William's Pokemon with not a whole lot to defend against it. So Will really has to consider, is it worth switching out into Groudon? At the same time, if his Gengar has Sludge Bomb, it might be worth getting a Sludge Bomb off onto the Xerneas, might be able to get the knockout. And so really, Will's going to have to decide where he wants to put his Groudon in.
Kangaskhan switching out, losing that Intimidate attack drop. Groudon coming in its place. Groudon and Kyogre are pretty much at opposite ends of the VGC 2016 spectrum. When Groudon enters the field, it does set up Sunlight, which not only boosts any Fire-type moves that it might carry, it also prevents the use of Water-type moves. The harsh Sunlight causes any water to evaporate immediately. Tommy, reading that switch, potentially switches out his Kyogre, sending in Salamence once again. Because it Mega Evolved, we will not see another Intimidate, but being able to reset the weather will probably be what Tommy's looking for here. Gengar with that Sludge Bomb, picking up the knockout onto Xerneas, and that's the end of turn number 3.
Yeah, and I think that was a huge turn for Will, even though now the Salamence is definitely going to outspeed his Gengar and probably be able to get a very nice Hyper Voice off onto at least 2 of Will's Pokemon. The fact that he was able to neutralize that Xerneas right so early in the game is going to give him a lot more freedom. He's not going to have to worry about his Yveltal as much. It's going to be able to come in. I mean, we don't know whether it's going to be a physical Yveltal or a special Yveltal, but if it does have Sucker Punch, that's going to give him priority. If he has something like, we might even see Oblivion Wing for recovery, but basically, it's a lot harder to check it now, and especially if he can get rid of that Weavile. Salamence can do a lot of damage with a double edge or maybe even a Hyper Voice. And Kyogre is going to be able to do a lot, but I think at least 1v1, Yveltal wins that matchup versus Kyogre. And if he can neutralize the Kyogre, really, Will just has to clean up and the game's his.
Yeah, it's also interesting to note this is game 1 of 3, so it's possible we could see Tommy make a shift in how he plays right now. Maybe try and scout out more information, knowing that with that Xerneas gone, a lot of his damage potential has been removed from the field.
Right.
Groudon switching out, going to preserve the sunlight for later. A very good defensive play by William. Crobat coming in place, so I don't think William brought both of his restricted Pokemon to this game.
He did not.
Salamence outspeeding that Gengar for the knockout with Hyper Voice. It's going to do about 50% damage to that Crobat.
Yeah, and that is not that's not great for the Crobat. He definitely, losing the Gengar also didn't help. But now what he's able to do, he's able to get in his Kangaskhan, apply his own Fake Out pressure now that Weavile just used its turn of Fake Out. And he still has that Groudon in the back. I think Salamence is not Groudon's favorite thing to take down. However, I think as long as Will can get one knockout this turn, force that Kyogre in, he can preserve the weather, get the sun up, and really restrict Kyogre's ability to get damage off. I mean, Groudon is not going to love an Ice Beam, and certainly that Crobat wouldn't love one either, but it's definitely better than taking a Water Spout or an Origin Pulse to the face. So I think that's really what Will's going to have to prioritize here. And he's got options as long as that Weavile, like I said earlier, super frail.
Salamence protecting this turn to prevent it from flinching. Kangaskhan seeing right through that, going for the Fake Out onto Weavile. It deals a ton of damage because Weavile's so frail. And Crobat taking this opportunity, basically a free turn to set up Tailwind.
That's fantastic. I think that's exactly what Will needed to do because as it stands, Kangaskhan is slower than both of Tommy's Pokemon. And that is now going to be able to get off a Double Edge a lot safer, not before taking damage from both of them, because I think a Hyper Voice or a Double Edge plus a knockoff or an Icicle Crash from that Weavile would definitely take out the Kangaskhan, and that would really put Will, I mean, then he'd be down 3-1 with the weather advantage against him. And so that was pretty much what he needed to do to win here. You might see Tommy return with a Tailwind of his own since he can't protect with the Salamence, but it might die before it might faint before it has a chance, so he's going to have to watch out for that.
Super Fraying from that Crobat connecting with Weavile. It's going to have its HP. Kangaskhan with that Double Edge. Who's it going to target? Who's it going to knock out? It does knock out the Salamence, so it's all up to Weavile this turn. Will it be able to pick up a knockout, possibly give us some more information about who has the faster primal? Icicle Crash does connect. It will not miss this turn. And he's going for the knockout on Crobat. Will he get it? Will it deal enough damage? It does. So now it's going to be down to 2 versus 2. That Kangaskhan and Groudon versus the Kyogre and Weavile combo.
However, what's very interesting here is Will's Tailwind might have just worked against him because Groudon's going to switch in first, set up the sun first, and then Kyogre's going to get the rain. So the rain is going to stick around for the remainder of this game. However, and the other problem is, well, Weavile can't really do a whole lot, I think, to Groudon, so it's pretty safe there. I really think that Will is going to have to target down the Kyogre, obviously. So whether that means he protects this turn with Groudon, goes for a Double Edge and a Precipice Blade, and it may pick up the KO. I mean, Kangaskhan did some pretty good damage when it was intimidated on that Xerneas, so I imagine it would be able to, unless that was a very bulky Kyogre, I feel like a Precipice Blades and a Double Edge would get that knockout. But if he ignores the Weavile, he might be punished for that as well.
Kyogre protecting this turn, attempting to stall out that Tailwind. Kangaskhan Double Edge targeting that Kyogre. Groudon's Precipice Blades does connect with the Weavile. It will not do any damage to Kyogre thanks to its Protect, and Weavile is knocked out.
Yeah, I think at this point Tommy knew that he needed to fish for some Precipice Blade misses, which we're all very familiar with, I'm sure. And he might still be able to win the game if a Precipice Blade does miss. Because the rain is up, Will obviously can't Fire Punch, so he has to rely on that 85% accuracy to connect if he wants to close this game out and not lose both of his Pokemon to an Origin Pulse.
Double Edge dealing massive damage to Kyogre, hanging on with just a sliver of health. Will Precipice Blades connect for the game win? It does. We are looking to start game 2 here of Tommy Cooleen versus William Hall. William taking the first match.
Yeah. And so I think that Will played an excellent game there. He was able to... And I really think speed control is what gave him that. Despite the fact that he ended with the weather against him, he didn't let that stop him. He didn't let the Kyogre get off an attack before it could really cause him problems. So I think as far as adjustment goes, Tommy is either going to have to... Well, see, he's in an interesting position, right? Because he definitely has a lot of fast Pokemon on his team. Salamence, Xerneas after boost is very fast. But he also has Bronzong and Amoonguss on his team. So he does seem like he has other options. And the question here, I think, is does Tommy go for those other options? Does he bring the Amoonguss? Does he bring the Bronzong? Try to put things to sleep with either Hypnosis or Spore. The other thing is the Bronzong could also have Skill Swap, which might cause problems for Will as well, because if he gets a Trick Room up, he's going to be able to keep the rain up a lot easier. And alternatively, Will really doesn't have any Trick Room options. He's all in on speed. And as we saw last game, he didn't bring the Yveltal. Probably afraid of the Xerneas, even though he was able to handle it pretty well. But if he doesn't bring that Yveltal, he's going to have a lot harder time threatening any potential Bronzong. So you may see that kind of adjustment from Will, predicting Tommy to want to go for a slowed mode. Alternatively, Tommy could just crank up the speed on his own side, assuming his Salamence has Tailwind, which a lot of Salamence do these days. So he may just want to prioritize that ahead of time.
Yeah, so once again, for those of you who may have just tuned in, we have William Hall, aka Biosite, up on the top screen. He is running a Crobat Salamence. Let's see if I can do this from memory now. Kangaskhan, Yveltal, Gengar and Groudon team against Tommy's Xerneas, Kyogre, Weavile, Amoonguss, Bronzong, and Salamence. We are starting Game 2 after William took Game 1. And it looks like Tommy is going to lead Amoonguss and Xerneas. It's a very common lead. I think trainers are very familiar with it. Against Will's same lead from last game, I believe, that Gengar Kangaskhan once again.
Yeah, except the difference here now is that Will's in a bit of a pickle because, as we all know, Amoonguss, or for those that may not, Amoonguss has Rage Powder, and neither of Will's Pokemon have spread moves. So that Xerneas is going to be able to, after waiting out a Fake Out, it's going to be able to redirect attacks from the Gengar and the Kangaskhan, and it's going to be able to get up a Geomancy and then just start doing massive damage. So Will really needs to either get rid of that Amoonguss as soon as possible or switch out into Groudon. But, you know, even if he switches out into Groudon, he's going to just bait in a Kyogre switch in, possibly on a Fire Punch, to try and get rid of that Amoonguss.
We're not going to see the Groudon switch in. Instead, Will withdraws his Gengar, sends in Crobat in its place. Kangaskhan once again going to Mega Evolve. Key thing to note here, Will again only brought potentially one of his restricted Pokemon. Xerneas is going to protect this turn and not take any Fake Out damage. Will making that read beautifully, faking out the Amoonguss instead, so we are not going to see anything except that Fake Out be accomplished this turn.
Yeah, so I think what is interesting about that switch in was exactly what Will needed to do, because getting in the Groudon could be risky, but getting in the Crobat gives him a lot of options, especially depending on the moveset. Taunt is very common on Crobat, so we might see a Taunt into the Amoonguss to stop it from redirecting and to stop it from using Spore, things like that. Alternatively, Crobats also have Haze, which resets the stats for the entire field, regardless of misdirection or redirection. So if Will is able to get rid of the stat changes after Xerneas has used up its Power Herb, it's going to be not doing anywhere near as much damage. It's not going to be the big threat that it is. It's going to just, I mean, it still does respectable damage, and the spread is nice, but really, like, that's just the benefit of Xerneas. It's there for that boost, and if it doesn't have it, you're really not having a good day.
Crobat setting up Tailwind to hopefully balance out speed between, you know, after that Geomancy boost from Xerneas. Kangaskhan knocking out a Amoonguss with a incredibly powerful double edge there. It's going to take some damage in return, but I think knocking out the Amoonguss was exactly what Will needed to do there.
Wow.
Xerneas not going for the Geomancy, instead Moonblasting the Crobat. So that was an amazing read by Will.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and I think that Tailwind was genius too, because if he didn't go for that move, the problem he would have had to face next turn is Xerneas was faster than his Crobat, and he wouldn't be able to get the Haze off until after the Xerneas already did probably a devastating attack. So the way it stands now, he is faster now even than faster than that Weavile, which granted is going to be able to fake out the Kangaskhan because Crobat does have inner focus, making it immune to flinching. So he is going to be able to mitigate that Kangaskhan and possibly get up a boost, but that pretty much just leaves Crobat to Super Fang or Taunt or to prevent a Geomancy as well. Really, Will has a lot of options here, and we also did just see Tommy try to focus down that Crobat with a Moonblast. We might see him try to repeat that and either hope for a crit or just slowly chip away, but it is a poison type, so it's going to resist that fairy type attack, and it's going to have a hard time he's gonna have a hard time taking it out. And the fact that Weavile's now slower means he can't knock it out with an icicle crash like he did in the first game.
Crobat using quick guard, trying to stop a fake out. He gets it. Weavile went for the fake out into Kangaskhan. It's not going to connect thanks to quick guard.
Wow.
Double edge will pick up the knockout on Weavile in a single hit. That dealt a ton of damage to that Weavile. It's all up to Xerneas here. Can it do enough damage to maybe bring the momentum back in Tommy's favor? He does target that Moonblast again to Crobat. It does not pick up the knockout. It gets a special attack drop, but you know, Crobat's only offensive move we've seen so far was that Super Fang, so it's not really going to be a lot of help.
No, we did see the Super Fang.
We did see Super Fang.
Yeah, okay. Which doesn't even use the attack stat, so it really doesn't matter.
No, you know, I gotta say, this has been a very one-sided match, I think, on William's side of the field. He's just making a ton of really amazing reads right now.
Which is interesting because, like I said at the beginning of the match, I think on paper, Tommy had a very favorable matchup. Kyogre, Kodoko, Groudon, Xerneas, Kodoko, Yveltal. But really, Will showed that by using his non-restricted Pokemon well, he could mitigate the threats of both of those Pokemon. And I think at this point, I mean, I think Will can just switch in Groudon and win at this, or he could just wait, which is what he's going to do.
Yeah, Super Fang from that Crobat going to bring Xerneas down to half its health. Double Edge from Kangaskhan into the Kyogre, also going to deal a little bit over half damage. So both of these Pokemon have been severely weakened. Whether or not they can do enough damage this turn to bridge the gap is hard to say. Xerneas going for that Geomancy. Finally, it's going to get a +2 special attack, special defense, and speed boost. But honestly, that might be a little bit too late looking at the way the field sits right now. We can assume that William probably has that Groudon in the back, waiting to come in, waiting to set up Sunlight, waiting to prevent Kyogre from using any water-type attacks. Kyogre going for an Ice Beam, so I think it's safe to say Tommy did try to predict the Groudon switch in that turn. He does get the knockout on Crobat, but it might just be too little too late.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm Will, I'm probably still a little bit nervous, because no one just looks at a boosted Xerneas and just says, oh, that's fine. I mean, I guess unless you have a Bronzong on your side of the field. But it's still a problem. Groudon is going to be able to take those hits very well, but can it take a Moonblast and an Ice Beam? Can it take two and knock out first? Again, a Precipice Blade miss could still be a problem. But the other thing here is, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tailwind is still up for at least one more turn. And Gengar, and between Gengar and Kangaskhan, Will could probably get at least one more knockout, unless we see a double protect here from Tommy to try and wait that Tailwind out. Assuming it's still up, I have lost track of the count. But at this point, I actually think as long as he can preserve his Kangaskhan, Kyogre's in Sucker Punch range. Xerneas definitely isn't because it resists that. But Gengar definitely threatens Xerneas as well. So if he can now neutralize the Kyogre, he can let Gengar mop up with a couple Sludge Bombs, and then Groudon can just come in and close things out, change the weather. You might even see him get a switch out. No, you don't get a switch out. I was going to say something, but now it's relevant.
Sludge Bomb into that Xerneas, misses the KO by just a little bit of health. Kangaskhan using that double edge to target the Kyogre once again. It's going to pick up the knockout. It is all up to Xerneas right now for Tommy. I'm not sure if it can do enough damage, but we shall see what he chose to do. Also worth to note that double edge didn't pick up the KO on Kangaskhan. As Dazzling Gleam will, but that means it does double target damage to that Gengar. Getting that knockout there could have possibly made it so it was Groudon versus Xerneas.
Okay.
But I think this match is over.
Yeah, well now even though the Tailwind petered out, he can just bring in Groudon, eat up any fairy type attack. And even if he got a crit Moonblast, which may be able to take out the Groudon, that still leaves the Gengar untouched, which can then definitely do like the 17 damage that is left, is left on the Xerneas. So we can get that KO, finish out the game, and Will looks like he is going to take this first set, have a nice start to the tournament. And Tommy, I think because of the amount of players, you really can only afford to drop one if you want a guaranteed spot in Top Cut. So Tommy kind of already is in a position where he needs to win out if he wants to make it into the top 8. He might be able to squeeze in as an X2, but he's going to have to worry about being on the bubble, about resistance, and if Will keeps winning, that might be some nice resistance. But I think a very good game from Will here.
Yeah, we're going to see that Dazzling Gleam. It will get the knockout on Gengar, but Groudon is free to Fire Punch this turn for the knockout, which is exactly what we see. Both players shaking hands. Very well played.
Yep.
I I gotta say, like that's a really tough start for Tommy, but I think he can rebound. He certainly is one of the, I guess, more prominent players here today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that was a
we're
great
back.
game. We're back. Yeah. Hi, everybody. William did a great job there in positioning himself favorably so he could neutralize the threats of the Kyogre and the Xerneas. I think actually, are we gonna do player review? Do you want to try and see if William
Yeah.
wants to talk? Okay.
Let's grab him. Bring
Let's
him
see
over.
if William and then Gabby's gonna to talk to William about that game and see if we can get his perspective on the match. And otherwise, after that, we'll probably be back with round 2 once everything else sorts out. So we'll be right back.
We'll be right back with
an
a
interview.
player interview. Thanks for watching,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Welcome
Hey.
back, everybody. I'm here with William Hall, aka Biosci. You just had basically a amazing match. Like it looked like you were in control that entire time. Were you nervous?
In team preview, I was really scared. Like, I thought I was gonna see the Amoongus game one. I was gonna bring the Salamence in that game too because I figured he would want to switch things up, bring the Amoongus. Because, personally, I think my team struggles with dealing with Amoongus without, especially when it's paired next to a Kyogre. And the Xerneas kind of pressured me in team preview, made me want to reconsider my choice of Eviltal and Salamence. But the Gengar was actually something I threw on last minute. This was a version of the team that I was running for PCs at the beginning of the season, just with a different Gengar set. But the Gengar actually ended up pretty well there. I was surprised it did so much to the Salamence.
Yeah, it was definitely like I think a key component of a lot of your wins. Is this like I mean, you said used this team at PCs. Is this your first time using Gengar in general in this format?
No. I had Gengar on the PC team, but it was it had Life Orb with substitute because
Oh, jeez.
yeah, the Life Orb allowed you to get the KO on 4 HP Xerneas. If they have any amount of bulk, they can survive. But of course, you can get the poison and stuff. You 2-hit KO obviously when they Geomancy.
Yes. So going back to that game you just played, like what was the hardest play you thought that you had to make? Because I mean, your reads were incredible that game. Like it felt like you were just constantly on top, out predicting.
I turned it in. What's it called? I think on that the turn 1, I thought he was maybe gonna switch in the Salamence so that for the Zern, so that I would miss the knockout on the Amoongus. He could get the free Spore off onto my Kangaskhan, and I would kind of be set back a little with that. he kind of played under the assumption a lot that I had taunt over quick guard, which was the reason why he sent in Weavile instead of Kyogre that turn.
Yeah.
And because I had quick guard, I was able to just get the free knockout onto the Weavile, which, being up 2-0 that early in the game, it's a pretty commanding start, especially when he's forced to send out his Kyogre, and I still have my Groudon in back, full HP, and yeah, my Groudon was fully special. Like, even if he had a situation where I was outside of Tailwind, and his Groudon and Kyogre were still alive, my Groudon could not be knocked out by any combination of attacks. The Moonblast is like 50% at most to my Groudon. The Groudon I'm running has a boatload of special defense.
That's awesome. So it sounds
So-
like you're like perfectly prepared then for today. Maybe a little bit.
Honestly, I'm not expecting a lot out of today. I just came to have fun with friends, hometown regional, but we'll see how it goes. It's a
Yeah.
good start to the day, obviously.
It's definitely a good start. I mean, winning round 1 is always a really good feeling, at least from like a security standpoint.
Especially
And then
against a player
against
like-
someone as good as Tommy, like you're off to a great start, and best of luck with the rest of your games.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you for commentating.
Happy to be here. All right, so we'll be back with round 2 shortly. Until then, please stick around.